Feeling trapped by all the stuff? Can't keep up? No time to think or plan? Has the rush and gush of modern life got you trapped?
Slow is the new fast. Slow is the new fast.
Slow is the new fast.
Set your coordinates. It's Mach 0, making time for life, one thing at a time, with your host, the VIP coach, John Davidson.
This is JD. You're listening to the VIP coach, and this is the Mach 0 podcast, making time for life, one thing at a time. Thank you so much for joining the show today from around the world. My hope is that you are an entrepreneur, you're a serial creator, a top producer, you are a supervisor, a leader of other people that are getting something worthwhile done. And the reason why you're listening to my show, this Mach 0 podcast, is that you see the value of slowing things down a bit. Because technology is going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster to the point that we're losing our sense of humanity. And so the reason why you're looking at this show is that you want some kind of balance. That's right. You understand that not everything can have equal meaning. And the reason why you're here is that you want to organize your life around creating what matters to you. You don't want anything second less. You don't want to lower your standards. You want to be the best creator that you can be. And to do that, you have this thing called a business. And in your business, you make profits, and the reason why you do is to oxygenate your mission, is to oxygenate your value to the marketplace, is to oxygenate your ability to make yourself more and more essential by getting freed up, reflective, focused, to be able to lead in a way that you can listen to the marketplace and be ultra creative. My job is to make you as essential as possible as a human being, as a leader, on many, many levels, to be there for yourself, to be there for others, and to be there for the world. I believe that you, in the work that you're doing, no matter how big or small your enterprise is, you truly are going to be the alchemist of a better future. I take that very seriously. And the defining features are very obvious. We're using up 1.5 Earths right now. Our consumption is way overdone. The Earth doesn't have the holding capacity for the population that we have. We're consuming too much. There's a 3-to-1 ratio. In other words, 3 people are killing themselves to 1 person dying at the hands of another, which is a spiritual crisis. We're going to have over 20 million people that will not have clean drinking water by 2020 if we keep taking this course. So, as I say these things to you, you can't help but pay attention to alert yourself to some of the consequences that we're collectively creating together on the earth. And as a business person, you are in the most important institution that will be shaping these institutions and systems, that the things that you do to create value for your own team, to create value for your clients, spreads. And you have to remember that. You have to remember the actual position. You got to understand what you're up against, but you got to understand also the opportunity of what you really have. What are you doing with this wild and precious life that you've been given? Mary Oliver, great poet, asked that question. What are we doing with this wild and precious life that we've been given? Are you doing what you came for? So today, my hope is that you are in the business of selling. In fact, I don't know anybody on the earth who isn't in the business of selling. I think we all have something to sell, because selling is creating value for someone else. Isn't that what you do as a mate in a marriage, is you create value for someone else? You find needs that they have and you meet them. Isn't that why marriages end, is because we don't meet emotional needs that other people have, or we're not getting our own emotional needs met? And if I know selling, nothing really moves on the planet until something is emotional. For you to sell what you do, you have to have someone understand or have a clear future that they want to create. They don't make you essential or make you a priority unless they understand the direction that they're going. So if they're always trying to recreate the past or avoid what happened before and remove or ameliorate the unwanted circumstances, how can you become essential to anybody like that? You're always looking for future-based people. They have a place to go. They're living into a challenge or a dream that has not materialized yet. And to create that, they need help. Help is giving someone something that they have not done for themselves, or they can't do for themselves. I call that honest help. But how much advice, how much expertise is out there that really isn't helpful? That prematurely we guess, we answer, we bring out our product, we come up with solutions without truly understanding or taking the time of the other person's actual state. We do this because our enthusiasm gets the best of us, or we get overly ambitious about winning the sale. So we prematurely elaborate, or we, as we say in sales, we say and then we pray. So we say and then we pray. We say it and then we pray that it might go somewhere. We get caught in doing too many presentations instead of having consultations. So why would I be bringing all this up? Why am I talking about the current reality of selling? Because it's not what you sell, it's the way you sell. Think about it. If you see great people that sell, you're one of them probably. You go out and you create value in the marketplace for the joy of it. What you love doing most is in the selling activity you do. You're listening to people. You're helping them define their needs. You're helping them think of new solutions. You're helping them expand an understanding or get their head around their real problems, their real current reality. You're positioning them to see what action steps have to be taken. This is great leadership. Helping them see the future, giving them a sense of direction. The reason why I'm saying that is that the way the world is kind of going, things are pretty ambiguous. Life has become pretty damn disruptive. We're living in a world of flux. The future is a mystery. We've traded mystery for mastery. What we've tried to do through our human potential is to master the future before it comes. We try to predict the future instead of create the future. So we're operating out of fear. About 80% of the world, 90% of the world is operating out of, I can't deal with the unknown. I can't tolerate uncertainty, so I have to figure it out. I got to know what's going on. And more the internet is feeding this because it gives us a super highway of information to figure out what our needs are, to act on those needs and pursue solutions that will meet them. Buyers have already gone through 80% of the buying process. They already know they have a problem, they've identified it, and they already know what to do to solve it. So when they're shopping or calling you, they already know what they need, they know what they want, and they're looking for the best price. And you say, oh, but how do I be a business with that? How do I do that? It's going to thin my margins. It's called commoditization. That you haven't been able to define the level of value. You haven't made yourself essential enough to dictate the price. So what you fall prey to is market dynamics such that they already have a pre-existing buying matrix in mind. They're already operating from their pre-existing notions. And you're going to be sold, not them. You're not the one selling in that. They're selling you. And all you're doing is compromising. Because your emotional hurdle is, can I leave the sale if it's not done right? Do I really understand the value of what I'm doing? But more so, do I really understand the buyer? And does the buyer really understand themselves? And this is why I'm bringing all this up, is that there's too much certainty out there from buyers. And what we have to figure out as salespeople is using our agility, be able to re-engineer that certainty and bias it to our solutions. Is this manipulation? No, it's persuasion, which would mean it's unto their own interests. But what I'm suggesting is this premise. What I'm positing is that the buyer doesn't know their real needs, and this is their trap. Is that if they come prematurely to the answers themselves, they actually inadvertently hurt themselves because they may have blind spots that they can't see. Think of it like you going to a doctor and being your own doctor. And everything that you're saying is telling the doctor what to do. Here's what's wrong with me. Here's what I need you to do. What would there be doctors for if that was the case? Why would there be salespeople if there wasn't a chance to redefine needs? So your number one capacity then is to redefine people's needs. But what does that depend on? You have to create a safe environment for people to do that. So what are the tenets that are around creating a safe environment? Well, for sure, it's not coming out and pushing. It's not about ramming your product down someone's throat. I call that the Joe Isuzu effect. They've already stereotyped you. You've already been categorized from the get-go, and you have to be exempt from jurisdiction. You have to be able to position yourself in a way where they have the confidence and the trust to tell you the truth. The number one ingredient is the commitment to the truth. What does that mean? Well, that means that the relationship foundationally is the primary organizing principle of a sales transaction. It's no longer about a buyer and a seller. There's something that's, quite frankly, co-creative in the way people are selling today, the ones that are winning. Co-creating means collaboration. It means teamwork. It means that there's maker instincts in both of us and that we're going to co-create together something that the buyer wants. We're going to work his interests. But in order to do that, we have to start off with a conversation. And the conversation is the hotbed that gives rise to a redefinition of needs. So how would I start such a conversation? What? Would I start it by presenting? No. Would I start it with a flip book of what I do? No. I would start with pull, not push. I would start with questions, not answers. I would start with curiosity, not being filled with certainty. I would start with a blank canvas. And by that means, I got to be a little more humble. I got to be able to keep in check and inoculate what I know. That means I got to come to every meeting with zeros. Come to every meeting with a fresh mind, with suspension and redirection to what the buyer is really saying. Because there's tons of assumptions. There's ones flying around in you about your assumptions of their intentions or your assumptions of what's going on, and they're editing too. They're assuming what you're doing, where you're coming from, and so forth. So we're like two tape recorders talking. That doesn't really get anything productive done. That's not what a real sale is, and that's not what a real connection is about. Real connections are about intimacy, vulnerability, truth-telling, trust, confidence, maneuverability, liberation, and a sense of free speech. We have to be able to help the buyer voice what their real needs are, to be able to voice what their actual state is, where they're starting from. That makes them more intelligent than they've ever been. And that brings forth a team intelligence that they can't get without us. So what is help? It's helping someone get something for themselves that they can't get for themselves. They can't do it on their own. And the one thing you've got, the one weapon you have, is a conversation. So you start off with the question, tell me what it is that you want to create. What is it that you're looking to get from someone like me? You've obviously thought this through, but what is it that you're expecting to get from someone in my capacity? Again, you're drawing out expectations. As you draw out these expectations, listen. Play back what you hear. Ask some probe questions like, for example, or what do you mean by that? Or maybe repeat back a word so that they elaborate. The more that they emotionally commit to their words and hear themselves, as they hear it, they begin to open the door to an alternative future. Now, what do I mean? The moment that we talk about something we want to create is the moment of truth when it starts to happen, because creating is linguistic. Creating means to bring into being something that doesn't exist yet. And your role is to be the facilitator, not the one who makes it happen, but the one who opens the door. To open that door, that buyer has to be asked the question, what is it that you expect? How do you see yourself using a person in my capacity? Once you get that on the table, you know what you're unique and valuable at. You know your strengths. You know your soft spots. You have to understand the buyer is probably needing something that they don't know they're missing. That's the premise. You have two options here. You either help them deny perfection, or you help them admit some kind of pain or problem. Or you could help them admit a goal. I suppose that would be a positive outcome they can admit. But really what's more impactful, what makes them more emotional, are the things that they are wanting to deal with, the problems, the current realities that they're dealing with, and the potential perfection that they didn't know they were missing. Two ways to this. Maybe assume that the buyer deserves or should be getting these special capabilities or deliveries that you do. And maybe ask them, I'm curious, when you do this so that you can eliminate this, are you comfortable with that process? This is called a picture-perfect question. What you're doing here is evocatively helping the buyer illustrate or imagine a capability that they are not getting. It helps them compare the current reality of what they are getting or thinking to what they could possibly get. It's expansionistic in that it gets them to extend their thinking around some new possibilities that they didn't know they had before. This brings me to define what prospecting means. When you're prospecting or creating a qualified suspect, you're creating a demand for what you do. People often think prospecting is finding an existing need. That's one of the most dangerous objectives a salesperson can do today. There's only 5% of people out there that would probably buy off of you finding their existing need, and finding people that have the existing need are pretty short anyway. They're not easy to find. But your sales territory is made of people that are not looking. These are people that have that need in the background but not the foreground. Or maybe they've been brainwashed by themselves to think that this is what I really need, but it's not. That's how I'm approaching this. When you use the picture-perfect statement, you're asking the person to evocatively think about what they're not getting yet. Their response might be something like, well, I don't get that, but I probably should. So being that that's probably true, you might respond with, well, maybe that wasn't that important before. And they say, well, it is now. And now you have stepped into a different stage in the process. Now they may be needing something that they hadn't evaluated at the top of the table. I recommend that you come up with 5 of these statements. I'm curious, when you blank, so that blank. Are you comfortable with that process? Sometimes when I'm selling coaching and I use the picture-perfect question, I have to understand the unique and valuable capabilities of the VIP Coach, the program that I founded and lead and deliver. So one of those unique and valuable qualities is variety. The variety of the coach to handle a multitude of different areas: health, business, finance, and relationships. I take a holistic, systemic approach with clients. I understand the interdependence between things, and I deal with root causes like that way. So I ask them, when you're evaluating the real cause of a problem so that you understand the extent to which the cause is causing it, and that way you don't make mistakes later because you missed, are you comfortable with that process? Do you have the variety levels that you think you need at this point to be able to see the real width, to be able to understand the real complexities that you're facing? Are you comfortable with that level of visibility? The answer is no, I probably don't. Well, maybe it wasn't that important before. Well, it is now. And so my response is, well, I wonder what I could do about that for you. Another capability that we provide at VIP Coach is we have a field-tested system. We have 8 specific modules proposed like a martial arts model that gets people well practiced given their commitment and consistency in several areas. It's about repetition. Everybody knows mastery has to do with the repetition. That's the mother of skill. If you're going to master a skill, you've got to master that skill by doing it over and over again. You can pretty much master everything if you go the distance. So with that premise in mind, we've created 8 modules that throughout a lifetime people can master. Everything is practice. So when I ask them the picture-perfect question, I say, look, when you are going after creating what you want so that you do the right things on the skills that are meaningful to what you create, do you have a way to master those skills even when you're not good at them? Because the traditional idea that they're operating on is I need to rally around my strengths, but this is very, very limited. They should be asking, what's the best way for me to do this process? And if I do that, I will outdo my current level of capacity and maybe go to another level. Granted, delegating might be the obvious idea, but having a system for mastery, having a repetition, an organized consistency to be able to bring their skill sets up to the level of the dreams or the creations they want is an amazing thing. So had I not thought about that before as the buyer, I might rethink that and say, I'm wondering if I really do have a system for mastery. I hadn't thought about that being a key ingredient to my recipe, but I wonder if I might look at that. So their answer is yes, no, or what's that? And I can do something with that. If they say no, I might move on. Or if they say yes, and so forth. So the idea is you're looking for needs. You're not dealing with an existing need. Your job is to create a need for what you do. And being that that's the case, you've got to help the buyer deeply understand what it is that you offer by asking questions that diagnose their situation or offer them greater capabilities to expand their thinking. More on this in a moment. I'm going to take a break. I hope you're intrigued by the talk. And what I want you to be thinking about is who are your next 5 prospects that you're going to be trying this on? Who have you got in the pipeline right now that may be sitting on the fence that you could go back with your picture-perfect question and you could ask this? And they suddenly say, that really gets me thinking. I'm kind of outside my traditional memory and thinking on that. That's a neat idea. Now you're really offering them a new way of looking at things. And then you can compare what they're doing today or what they have in mind to what it is that you want. And by virtue of that comparison, you can explore the impact of their old way of thinking, which we'll talk about in part 2, and help them see a new vision of a solution that's biased to your product or services. All right, stand by. I'll be right back.
Grow your business and grow as a human being with these captivating books authored by the VIP coach himself, John Davidson. The Day I Built My Barbecue is about creative freedom. Learn how you can not only live well, but also grow a thriving business at the same time. John shows you his step-by-step technique with the principles, strategies, and steps to move from a business operator to a business owner. The day you build your barbecue is the day we all wish for. Totally free of distractions, totally available to living well, fully present. Then don't miss Unstoppable You. It's about creative value. When we do what we love and love what we do, we discover ways to make our business more fun and monetize our passions. Through stories, tools, and steps, this book will help you bring something to the world that no one else can and bridge your most unique talents to the deepest aspirations you have of the future. And stand in the presence of all you are. It's about creative purpose. What does it mean to live on purpose? How do we work with the mystery that life presents us at every moment? In this book, John shows us through the silent spaces in life how to connect with our innermost sacred projects and passages. You'll learn how to bring the work, language, and presence of the soul into everything you do. Visit highlevelperformance.com to pick up any of these books in paperback or Kindle editions today. That's highlevelperformance.com.
Having a life where you have the creative freedom to do what you love and to offer the world something that only you can bring to the table. That is the world of high-level performance with John Davidson. That is the world of radical creativity. That is the world that you can be a part of when you realize all that is holding you back is you. Begin the journey through one-on-one coaching that gives you the finesse for business and lifetime achievement, and find your place on the roadmap to high-level performance today. Visit highlevelperformance.com.
From go time to slow time. Slow is the new fast. Mach Zero, making time for life, one thing at a time. With VIP coach John Davidson.
We're talking about selling, folks. This is the VIP coach, the Mach Zero podcast, making time for life, one thing at a time. Selling, 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 selling. Everybody is selling something. We're talking about a very distinct strategy about how you're going to reset buyers' needs into your solutions, how you create a buyer on your criteria rather than you working theirs. This is the way to inoculate, this is the immunity to the commoditization trap. It's one way to get around it. Another way to get around it is to package the questions a little bit different. Maybe use when, who, and what. So when you're in this situation with so-and-so, would it also help if you could? So when you're in the moment of trying to understand the current reality of where you are compared to your goal line, would it also help if you had an expanding conversation of reflection and measurement to be able to see some of the blind spots that you might miss because of the way that you are conditioned to think? Would it help if you could start looking at other potential causal realities that may be existing inside or outside the system that you need a sounding board? You also could use a sounding board. They say, I hadn't really thought about that, but that'd be a very helpful capability. So there may be another way to come at this with when, who, and what questions. But either way, write down 5 of these formations: when, who, and what's, or this picture perfect question. I'm curious when you blank, so that blank, are you comfortable with that process? ? Now we've got to find a comparison between the way that they do it now and the way that they could possibly do it emerging with your conversation. So the question becomes about today. Today, do you have a system for variety? Today, do you have a way to be able to expand your thinking outside the box? Today, do you have a way to keep in check some of your mental constructs that you fall into in your habitual judgment? Today, do you have a way to keep honest with yourself and locate the direct contact with current reality so that you can see what's really going on without filters? Today, do you have a sounding board? You can start looking at these things by comparing now, by landing it into today versus the way it could possibly done tomorrow. And this is where the buyer begins to see how they would move from A to B. It helps them construct the bridge from where they are to where they could be. But one more thing. What about the impact? The thing that makes them fueled to do it, the thing that gets them motivated for you to be coming aboard, for you to be invited into their camp, is that it hurts. It's already something that's positioning them poorly. So if they've already been doing it the way that they've been doing it today, what is the impact of that? and what is the impact in terms of a percentage, a number, money lost, what are the costs, who is it affecting, how much is it affecting them, so forth. Because you understand the buyer, this is part of you having an understanding of previous buyers, you can intelligently ask control impact questions like, if this and this were going on, would so-and-so be affected? And if that were going on, would you be concerned about that? So if you got downrange in the future and you had missed a potential cause of the problem, so you thought that you had rehired the person, but you end up having the person doing the same things that the bad hire you had before is doing, if you miss something in the system, would you be concerned? And if you had rehired that person because when you lose a bad hire, it's their entire annual salary as cost, how much would that be setting you back? And they begin to say, boy, that's really putting a case around the way I was thinking before. That's expired. It's outdated. I need to get a newly dated way of thinking. So they move off their old mental constructs and they move more willingly with trust toward your case. And all you're doing is helping them understand the impact of what might play out. And this is important. You need the visibility of interdependence. Because as you start to see inside clients, you see them as whole systems. You begin to see the interrelationships between things, between events. You begin to see the coherence of how things move, what I call through the pain chain of the organization, where it affects the VP of sales, which affects the HR person, which affects the president or vice president, which affects the CEO, which affects the chief operations officer, which affects the CTO, you begin to see how a ripple effect of consequences begin to affect on a wider scale people inside the organization. If you're selling to the consumer, it's the same thing. It affects all parts of their life plan or part of the people that are in their life in different ways. So it affects their children, it affects their spouse, it affects their friends, it affects their dwelling, it affects their peace of mind, their quality of life, it affects their confidence, their psychology, it affects the amount of time that they need to spend in the day to get to what's important. It's looking at the impact, and I recommend you have 5 fact finders on that impact that are ready to go around the individual problems that the buyer is having. This is part of you having, again, an essential, deeper understanding of the buyer situation, your core advantage. The more essential you are, the less hard you have to push to sell or market. Now you come back to visualizing it again. So if you had these things, you'd be able to solve this. You'd be able to get past that impact, right? If you had these things, you'd be able to get this thing you said you wanted. If you had these things, you'd be able to get to your goal. Do you see that? The more you get the buyer, the more you get the person to see the solutions. It's about thinking in pictures. You have to think structurally. So think of the buyer having a film crew in their mind, and that little film crew is drawing up a picture of putting your capabilities into their future and then taking it away. So would it help if you had these things, and what would it help you solve? What would become possible? And this is the value justification of your conversation. This is how you're selling someone they didn't know they needed before, but now they do. This positions you in a very advantageous way because they haven't done the shopping experience to compare you. It doesn't inspire that either because you're the first one to think of it. You're the only one because you've got them on a unique plane of conversation that's around their unmet needs that they didn't know they had until now. So this becomes the most vital thing ever. This is what it is that you absolutely have to do. Now, once you get through that, then we have to make you even more essential. Let's say they become a client, and now they're under your protection, and you're now understanding them in new ways. So maybe they're an A client, but you go to them and you ask them on a consistent basis, if you could have anything from me, what would it be? If you could have your heart's desire or make a wish, and I was Merlin tomorrow, and I could wave the wand, what would you want? That is going to be the central core of your business plan. You don't need to look at your competition or see what they're doing. Pay attention to your A clients because they're the ones that are going to take you to the future. This is so key. What we're talking about is the more essential and the deeper you understand people, the more they will not need you to push because they're going to need you. They're going to be coming to you rather than you pushing to them. That's a huge shift. What a great position to be in business, to lead the field. That's what market leadership is. Then you have this way of converting a customer to a client and a client to a raving fan. It's called the loyalty ladder. So to become a client, the conversations deepen. You understand better and help them galvanize their 3-year vision and ask pertinent questions to help them stay on track. You help them understand and deal with the concurrent challenges that are emerging on an ongoing basis through the conversations to help them really think. You're helping them identify opportunities and nip them and get closer to them within reach. And you're consistently being a supply line to their strengths, what excites them, internally, externally, to bolster and foster those strengths as key weapons to create the future. With your help, they'll be able to capture the strengths, the opportunities, and eliminate the dangers that they fear losing. They fear losing something. You're going to help them eliminate that fear and drive confidence. With that said, you're more indispensable, but you have more work to do. Now it's time to cultivate a referral lookout with your client. Taking them to being a raving fan means integrating the referral lookout into the buying process or into the delivery process. That at various stages, based on what you're delivering, you have to consolidate gains. Getting a report card on how you're doing with truth-telling will help you get compelling evidence of how you're standing out to the buyer, why they remain loyal to you, where you have a unique ability that other people don't, where your unique process is more distinguished and defined than other people that are offering what you do. Your buyer feedback is insanely essential. So with that, you have to always ask. At the same time, they may be writing a check to someone else for something that you're doing or about to do. Ask them if you've done something wrong, because there's no reason why they shouldn't be writing you that check or give it a try. They've already built and divided some of their distribution of trust to you. Why not give it all? So there may be additional opportunities to move from a hook to a harpoon relationship. Hooks to harpoons mean you've only got one hook in, but now you can really harpoon them into many solutions. Upsells and cross-sells and add-ons are some of the easiest marketing tactics that you can do, and you can have tremendous gains. And the more they get value from you at one source, the more value they get. So they can solve problems all in one place. It's more convenient. You get a chance to aggregate all of their needs. Why not? So with that being said, how do we take them to a raving fan? Well, you define the intervals where you're going to be asking for the report card. When you ask for that report card, ask for specifics about how you earned it. Would you give you an A? Would you give you a B? If you earned an A, then ask them why you got an A and be clear. Concretize that. If that makes them emotional, then switch to a referral pivot question like, who do you know that would appreciate the same level of service? Or compliment them about qualities that bring you into your best work. John, I really appreciate you because you do 3 things and they always inspire me to deliver my very, very best work to you. Who do you know that would have the same kind of client qualities that would bring out my creativity this way? Pivots. Referral lookouts are great, but you have to compel the sincere care as to why they should be looking out for a referral. One of the ways you can do that is when at the moment you provide value and they exclaim, this is really helpful, you can say, wouldn't it be ridiculous if someone didn't know about this? Wouldn't it be ridiculous if I'm a financial planner? Wouldn't it be ridiculous if someone didn't know that the 10% is what they should be saving? Can you imagine if they were out in the cold, clueless for 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, where that person would end up? Yeah, I guess you're right. The empathy is what's drawn forth to cultivate a referral lookout. Make referrals favorable introductions. Don't say referrals anymore in your language. Referrals have a stigma to them. Instead, call them favorable introductions. I really appreciate favorable introductions. Tell your best clients why getting favorable introductions is better for them. When you give me favorable introductions, Mr. Client, instead of going out and hunting all this business, I get to redirect my efforts back to you and your account. And I know that you wouldn't refer someone unless they took your vested interest to heart like that, right? Totally. And if you're blown away, every year, I'd anticipate 2 high-quality, high-impact, favorable introductions that I'd love to work as hard as I do for you with. They're almost as great as you. So it really would mean a lot to me to earn your favorable introductions this year. Now, that coupled with a report card of getting honest help on the table of how you've made a difference, how you made an impact, you voiced that. If you get a B or a B plus and say, I want to earn an A plus this year, how do I do it? What would have to happen in order for me to get there? And then go with it and do it. Make that your business plan. Satisfy them so that you can propagate their business, multiply them, and clone them. Birds of a feather flock together. That's wealthy thinking. So you want to get in front of the highest quality. You want lower sales cycles. You don't want to have to struggle so hard to get these sales. So it behooves you to cultivate a referral lookout. Take certain parts of your process in delivering great service and then pivot over to, wouldn't it be ridiculous if someone didn't know about X, or if they never learned Y, or if they never had this at their fingertips? What would happen to them? Narrow the frame of reference down by identifying where they like to hang out: golf, tennis, groups, trips, things like that, because they know 1 or 4 people in these spaces that probably would have these kind of qualities. So maybe narrowing it down to saying, who do you do this with? Well, who do you think of? Have they ever mentioned that? Could be a neat way of framing the referral. Now, as you do that, it's about connecting with them. So always try to get them to call first. Say, look, I would really appreciate if you could make a call before I do and make an introduction. Would you do that for me? Or I've written up an email that already introduces me, kind of houses my unique ability. It'll take the burden off of you of explaining what I do. Great, send it to me. Let them change it around to their personality. Then they deploy it. And when the nominator sends it to the referral, when they send it to the favorable introduction, and the favorable introduction responds favorably, ask the nominator, your client, to send you an email signaling to you that it's a good connection. Then within 12 hours, send an email or make a contact with that person with the favorable introduction saying, I promised X client that I would contact you today at this time. They mentioned that I could help you with, and they also said you were interested in. That's called the honor greeting. So we're scripting out here how to cultivate a referral lookout and help yourself get favorable introductions. Turn your best clients into raving fans. These are the steps. So cultivate a referral lookout, motivate them during the process to help them see how ridiculous it would be to withhold this from someone. 2 is to ask for a report card, pay compliments to them, and then pivot off those 2 points. Once you get that feedback or pay compliments, those become referencing grounds to ask for a favorable introduction. Asking is like you ask for a good joke. You can't remember one. So you know so many, but you can't remember them. It's like remembering a good joke. So you're asking them for specific places and things they're doing to cultivate that specific referral or favorable introduction. When they think of one, ask them how they'd like to connect. Suggest they call first to make an introduction. Offer a power email that you write up that they can deploy, and that way it explains what you do and makes selling you monkey-proof. Then when they get the favorable response, send it back to you, and then within 12 hours, make the honor greeting. I promised so-and-so that I would contact you today at this time. Shows you're reliable and dependable. There's a positive obligation to the nominator. The nominator looks like a hero. They mentioned that you're interested in your big capability or unique ability. They also said that I could help you by. So those 3 things. They thought I could help you because they mentioned you were interested in, and I promised today that I would call you at 3 o'clock. I promised so-and-so that I would call you today at 3 o'clock. From there, you can set the agenda, talk about how you want to introduce yourself in the call or learn more about them and their situation, and away you go. So today was about selling 2 areas. Number 1, it was about selling something that they didn't know they need, resetting the buying criteria. What I'm trying to do is to break or evaporate the old stereotype of the Joey Zuzu seller and have you relate with yourself and see yourself as someone who offers real help. But have the ethics in place so that you don't help prematurely and be able to break down the buyer from coming to their own needs prematurely so that the helping relationship becomes possible. Once you avoid those 2 traps of you suspending your answers and the buyer suspending their assumptions around their needs, now you can come into a real needs conversation where you can redirect it toward your services and reset the buying criteria. Then we turn a client into a raving fan. How do we do that? Well, we start understanding them very deeply and providing value to them, always finding value, giving that to them for the joy of it. But we always ask our clients what dream solutions we want and blow them away with those unique solutions so that we're essential and we're market leaders because our competition's boggled by what we're doing. Don't pay attention to the competition. Ask your clients. Cultivate a referral lookout. And now you know the rest of the process because I just taught it to you. So this is the Mach Zero podcast, making time for life one thing at a time. You're probably loving these ideas, but no idea is valid or valuable until it's implemented. And that's why we came up with the VIP coach, is that you need to be mindful and concentrate among a myriad of distractions to implement what matters to you. And that requires help. That's something you can't give yourself. Focusing, repetition, commitment, consistency, and doing it in style and doing it with field-tested world-class strategies is something you should depend on us for. I can provide you the motivation, the organization, structure, and the clarity and the accountability that you depend on to make a bigger future than the past. Our direct line is 714-375-6624. That's 714-375-6624. This is JD, the VIP coach. You can find us online at highlevelperformance.com. Thank you for tuning in to the Mach Zero podcast, making time for life one thing at a time. We'll see you soon.
For more tools, go to highlevelperformance.com. Better business, better life. Fast growth, keeping things simple. or visit us on Facebook. Mach Zero, making time for life, one thing at a time. Set boundaries, focus your attention, and maintain a positive state of mind. Hire a VIP coach to help you. Call 714-912-9261.